Hello. Hello. Can you hear me? Mic test 1 2 1 2. Hello. Welcome to the Dry Photo channel. Sorry about the light over there. Just big beam of light in there that you're gonna just keep seeing for the rest of the video. So I just wanted to make a video about a book that I've been reading lately because I've had nothing to do but read books for the past, well, you know, for the entirety of 2026 so far. This reading is all that I've been able to do, I guess. And the book that I've been reading right now is Fyodor Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov. And I'm currently like page 596 out of 897. And I guess the focus of this video would just be about the Alyosha chapter and the Dmitri chapter, or I guess in this case, the Alyosha book and the Dmitri book, which are side by side, or are sequentially connected. Uh, okay. So first we'll talk about, uh, I guess my overall impressions of the brothers so far. I really like all of them. I really like all of them. Maybe except for Pavel or Smerdyakov, because we don't really see too much of him. We really don't. Like we don't like so far. The only thing we've ever seen is Smerdyakov trying to impress Ivan by engaging in religious debate, because that seems to be the main thing that people have been debating on in the book so far, and him being scared of Dimitri. That is something that we keep seeing. That like I'm only giving Dimitri information about my dealings with uh, Fyodor Karamazov, who's the Karamazov patriarch. I'm only doing business. I'm only telling Dimitri about my secrets with Fyodor because I'm scared that he will kill me. And judging from what we see with Dimitri, Dimitri does seem to be a very. I'm sure you might see it on the title later. I don't know. Like I have a title in mind, but I might not be using it. But uh, Dimitri is very much like a puppy or a big dog, really. That kind of just is like I'm sure that Dimitri, for the most part, means well. It's just that he's so big and that he's so impulsive that he just runs through things, like runs to its masters without any much like without regard for the safety of the things that it's just running through. Like it's just pushing people to the side, getting people hurt, and we see that ramp up a lot in in Dimitri's chapter. Like Dimitri's already a very disastrous character, and I'd even say like he's amusingly disastrous. But he gets even worse in his own book. So I do love everybody except Pavel, but it's more that I'd like to see more of him. But the last time we saw him, because I'm currently in the part of the book where uh, they just finished talking about the investigation of Dmitri. They've already done the preliminary interrogations, and now we're on a chapter about this boy named Kolya Krasotkin, who I still have no idea like what he does in this book. Uh, but yes, so Pavel, I'd like to see more of him. Unfortunately, last time we saw him, he's had like a bajillion epileptic attacks in one day, and this one doctor is thinking that like what, he might not survive. Although I do think that I don't know, it might be a little mean of me. It might be a little mean of me, but I am thinking that Pavel might be the killer. He might be the killer because now because obviously in this part of the story that we're in right now, every piece of evidence is pointing towards Dimitri, and uh, I shouldn't probably be blinded by the fact that uh, the prosecutor in Dimitri's chapter, he's talking about how, or he's thinking that, Dimitri, like, he hits Grigory, who is the butler of the Karamazov family. He hits him in the head with a pestle, and that gets him to bleed. And he sees this as a sign of, like, preemption. I'm not even sure if that's a word, but, like, he sees it as a sign of, like, premeditated murder. That he killed, or if not premeditated murder, at least some level of planning on Dimitri's side. Which, as we read through the entire, not the entire, because I'm still, as you can see, I still have this little bit left. But as we can see throughout all the chapters so far, he has no, like, there is not a single sector of his brain that is uh, dedicated to planning. He is all impulse. He is all spontaneity. But he sees it as, like, planning on Dimitri's part. That he sees that he kills Fyodor, and then while he's trying to run away, he sees that Grigory is a possible witness to the murder, and so he tries killing him too. And it's just some miracle that Grigory is alive, and so is able to testify against uh, Dimitri. So I guess now we'll talk about uh, Dimitri as, like, what do I think of him as a character? I really like him. I really like him, and I thought that honestly, I thought I would like uh, Ivan the most. I think he had a lot of potential to be, like, an interesting character, at least in the beginning, because and even in later chapters, he is a pretty interesting character, and he's a character that I kind of like because he is somebody who debates, especially to certain people, like Alyosha. He debates with his heart, kind of like he's still obviously engaging in his, like, logic stuff because he is, like, the smart one, but whenever he's debating, especially with Alyosha, like, whatever he says, he means it. It's not There's no gotchas, there's no, like, logical traps or whatever. Like, sometimes he will acknowledge that there are uh kinks and errors in his logic, and sometimes he would even try to, like, invite you, like, how, like, can you try to, like, work it through with me. And that's something that I really like. But so far, I think Dimitri is one of my favorites, like, shockingly, because uh Ivan, the smart one, uh kind of interesting, of course. uh Alyosha, I was kind of thinking that, like, maybe he's not all that interesting. He's just kind of like a mild mannered guy that is kind of like, it's easy for the story to just be narrated in his perspective because he's almost like a non-factor because of how passive he is. But as we see through other chapters, we see that no, he also has kind of like an impact in the story and impact on the other characters. He's not just like a passive observer. He also acts upon the story. At least so far that I've read, I think uh, he's done some things. So yeah, I was thinking at the beginning that Ivan would be my favorite. Dmitri sounds interesting. Uh, Alyosha, he's okay. Maybe kind of cute because honestly, from what I've been reading in here, I have chose to read him as a twink. I've just cast him in my mind as a twink, and Ivan, I've cast him to be basically, that illustration of that one, like, illustration of Max Stirner but made human, and Dimitri is like uh what's his name? Like Harry Dubois? Is that his name? The guy from uh Disco Elysium, it's kind of how I imagined him, but like with a little bit more spirit. Like he's actually like a live being and not kind of like this corpse going through rigor mortis, but is still somehow able to walk, which is how Harry Dubois is kind of mentioned in or how he's described in Disco Elysium. But yeah, I really like him because he is he's this very passionate character. He's this very passionate character, and at first I was kind of thinking like, okay, what's going on with him and Katerina and Grushenka? And uh, when we first are kind of like familiarized with Grushenka, or like we're first introduced to Grushenka, we see it in Alyosha going to Katerina's house, and we see that Katerina and Grushenka are both there. And at first, honestly, when I first saw like the descriptions or how Alyosha described like the scene, or at least how the narrator described the scene, he said that like, oh, Katerina looked like it was almost as if she was in love with Grushenka, and I was like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Are we getting like 19th century lesbians? But then we later see that Katerina is just immediately betrayed, and honestly, I still kind of like that because like, yeah, you know what? I like some toxicity. I like some toxicity here and there, and later in the book we realize why Grushenka acted that way because it's kind of like I don't know. I suppose even if she didn't hold these like really strong feelings for Dimitri, it's kind of like, do you really think that I'm so simple that I could be bribed by like I don't know chocolates and candies and a bunch of like nice words? I think that's how she described it to Alyosha in Alyosha's book. But uh, yeah, I really love Dmitri and Grushenka actually. I love both of them. At first, I was thinking that like, okay, this is a weird love triangle-ish situation. It's a love, uh, like a love conveyor belt, maybe kind of. I don't know, where Dmitri uh is engaged to Katerina, but he doesn't truly love Katerina, or at least he doesn't think that he deserves her. And so eventually he falls in love with Grushenka, and this was something that I kind of had some reservations. This is the reason why I had some reservations about Dmitri and Grushenka's relationship in the beginning, where from the way that Dmitri talked about it, like I love Grushenka because I'm a horrible person and I deserve a horrible woman, and it's like, oh, I mean, it's kind of like I guess it kind of sucks. It kind of sucks to hear that like somebody who supposedly loves you is saying that like I want to be with this person because like I think they're going to ruin my life and that's what I deserve. Uh, but we see that there's more to it in Dimitri's in Dimitri's book. So at first that was my thoughts on the relationship with Dimitri and Grushenka. But as the book goes on, he becomes more endearing. Like the scene where he jokingly holds up Alyosha and just like in the dark just tells him like your money or your life, right? And it's like I was just kidding, I was just kidding. Sorry, sorry, sorry. And one other thing that I kind of liked about uh the brothers Karamazov is that uh the dialogue is very human, kind of, because people can get a little preachy and like people can have like multiple paragraph lines, like it's just them talking, they're just monologuing while the other party is forced to listen for all 8 paragraphs of it or so. But I don't know, I really like the fact that uh the characters, they stutter a lot. They stutter a lot. They stop themselves a lot. They contradict themselves a lot, and they know of it. They know about it. They're aware of it. I kind of like that flow in the conversation. the conversation because it makes him sound a little bit more human, especially with Dimitri. Like if I remember correctly, he was having this conversation with Alyosha. Uh, I think it was when like Alyosha was coming, like he was from the monastery, and he was going into the Karamazov household after Fyodor makes a scene at the monastery dinner. And before he is able to go home, he comes into contact with Dmitri, and they have a conversation in that one house where Dmitri is like hiding in. Uh, but yeah, I really like I really like Dmitri because he is so impulsive in such an endearing way, especially reading his chapter or reading his books. It was I felt almost manic. You know what I mean? Like he does so many things, like not because he planned on it. It just popped up in his head, and he was thinking that like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do that. Like I wouldn't even think about like, oh, is this the best plan of action? Is there a better alternative? Nope, it came to my head, and so now I'm going to execute it, whether or not it's a good idea. And we see that with Dmitri following Samsonov, which is Grushenka's guardian slash maybe like a legal husband. I think so. I think that's the relationship, right? Uh, like he asked Samsonov, like, "Hey, I need to get 3,000 rubles so that I can get Grushenka, uh, like the woman that you're married to, by the way. Like, yeah, I need money so that I could take her away from my father." And like you bless our relationship, right? Right? Like you're an invalid. You're an invalid. It's not as if you have like a sensual, intimate relationship with Grushenka and Samsonov. I guess like he gets pissed at that, and so he just gives Dmitri like purposefully bad advice, and it just leads to Dmitri kind of just losing a lot of things. Like he just wastes a lot of time. He wastes a couple rubles here and there on the travel, and then we also see Dmitri just like, okay, that failed. Maybe this time I'll go to Holocaust. Like she thinks that uh I'm so bad for Katerina, and now I just realized I wasn't able to finish my train of thought on the love conveyor belt because it's kind of like Dmitri gets engaged with Katerina, but instead he falls in love with Grushenka, and then so it's kind of like a love triangle. But then Ivan is in the mix, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you get with Katerina instead?" And uh, what's his name? Fyodor Karamazov, not Dostoevsky. The Karamazov patriarch is kind of just there to mess things up. Like everybody's already perfectly paired up, I guess, to some extent. And then Fyodor is kind of just there. Nobody invited him or anything. He just wants Grushenka. So, uh, as I was saying, uh, Dmitri just goes to Madame Holocaust and asks for 3,000 rubles. Like, please, like if you give me 3,000 rubles, I'll be freeing Katerina. I won't have to see her again, kind of, or I don't have to terrorize her again. Like she will finally be with Ivan. Like she can be with Ivan just as you want. And instead, like the entire time, uh, Holokov just leads him on to some extent with like I don't know, like I'd call it the church classic. I'd call it the church classic, where sometimes in the sermon they would talk about like I have something more valuable than money. I have the the gift God's love and something like that, and it's worth more than $100,000 million or whatever. But instead of like God's light, it's God's light and love. It's more of like if you go to this gold mine, eventually you can get even more than 3,000 rubles. And then eventually, like Dimitri gets mad when he finds out that she doesn't really have 3,000 rubles, and even if she did, she wouldn't give it to him. So, uh, yeah, like his entire chapter was just a manic experience because I almost felt like he's just doing all these things without a second thought, and and he just like crashes into the consequences of these actions, like the consequences of not thinking about what would happen if he went through with a certain plan. And it almost kind of like while you're sitting there reading, you're kind of just driven, or not really driven, but it almost feels like, maybe I should make bad decisions too. You know what I mean? Like I should just do the first thing that pops up in my mind. I should be like Dimitri. Not really. Not really. I obviously you don't want to be like Dimitri, but it's just a fun read, and the emotions that Dimitri goes through is something that can easily translate to you when you're reading it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of House of Leaves, specifically the part where Johnny Truant is getting more and more paranoid, and uh, like there's a time when he just deletes everybody's numbers, he flushes all his drugs in the toilet, he covers his windows with newspapers, and I don't know, like he puts like uh egg cartons for soundproofing. Which, by the way, maybe I should put uh newspapers onto my window as well if like the sun is shining this brightly. Yeah, yeah, I almost felt that way. Where it's like I also did feel kind of paranoid in that scene with Johnny Sherwood and with Dimitri. He's also like yeah, like I keep saying it. I feel manic. I feel like making a lot of bad decisions and just going through with it. Like just no concern for consequences. I will do something, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And when we get there, we just like suffer tremendously. Uh, so yeah, that's Dimitri's story, and I kind of like I've read somewhere that it's not the same with other translations because I have this Signet Classics copy of the Brothers Karamazov, and it's translated like pretty much a lot of the books that I have of Dostoevsky. Actually, you know what? I think this is the only one. I just feel like all of my copies are translated by her. It's translated by Constance Garnett, and there's this one passage that I thought felt really kind of kind of adorable, where it's a scene where he's getting interrogated, and the prosecutor and the lawyer ask him to take off all of his clothes so that they could see if if there's any uh, evidence on him that they could find. And he removes his clothes, and at some point he's kind of naked, and the only thing he has are like these like really tight clothes that came from Kalganov, who I think is Peter Miasov's nephew. I think I think it's his nephew. But yeah, he wears these like really tight clothes, and he's kind of just like he feels kind of naked, I suppose. And he just covers himself with a quilt, and he just says something along the lines of like, I'm not sure if he was. I think he was talking about the lawyer, or it might have been the prosecutor, whoever Nelyudov is. He just says something along the lines of like, he must think me a puppy or something like that. And like he is a puppy. He's a very like actually not a puppy. He's a very big dog. He's a very big dog that like I don't know. I feel like if you call to him, like he'll just run and zip towards you. but in the process you'll also like knock over your vase and I don't know, maybe spread some dirt around, break some other stuff. But yeah, he's a he's a very cute character. He's a very cute character, and uh I kind of see why Grushenka has what do you call it? I kind of see why Grushenka is endeared by him. And I guess now that we're gonna talk about it, what is the relationship between Grushenka and Dmitri? Because honestly, I've been thinking about it, and it's like, what exactly is the relationship? Because I don't really like how Dmitri spoke of Grushenka, that like like that's what I deserve. I deserve to be in the back alleys or something like that. But then we see that uh, in the end, near the end of the Dmitri book, which is like my one of my favorite chapters so far, Delirium. Uh, basically, she's kind of like, yeah, like we're both horrible people. Let's blow our lives up together. Let's go work in Siberia or something. Although I think it's because Dimitri is already thinking that like, oh, I killed Grigory. I'm probably gonna be in prison somewhere in Siberia, and Grushenka isn't really aware that like Dimitri like thinks he killed somebody, and she's like, well, that's a weird choice, but sure, let's go to Siberia. Let's toil the lands in there. Although now that I think about it, is Siberia a good place to start a farm? Like it sounds like a very cold place. But yeah, I thought that was that was honestly kind of cute a little bit. It's a little toxic, but at the same time, I do think that I think it's kind of romantic that they think that they deserve each other, and they obviously love each other. It's not as if like, oh, you're what I deserve. Like, uh, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's I'm obligated to be with you. Like, it's very clear that despite them saying like we deserve each other in a somewhat negative connotation, it's not out of obligation that they love each other. They really do passionately love each other. Like we see like Grushenka kind of just like telling Dimitri like, oh, go away, like go drink, go party, and then every couple of minutes she'd always just ask Dostoevsky, not Dostoevsky, fuck, should always just call Dimitri and like, please, like come back, talk to me a little bit. And especially in the interrogation, we also see that they're so desperate to uh, hug and embrace each other. And we also, I guess, see this other kind of cute Dimitri scene where I think the interrogation is pretty much over. Uh, they get Dimitri's view of things. They also interrogate everybody else who was involved in the party or knew of Dimitri's party from like a month ago, where he supposedly spent Katerina's 3,000 rubles. And uh, interrogation's done. And Grushenka just bows to Dmitri and tells him that like, when I told you that I was yours, I was serious about it. I am yours, and I love you, and you are innocent, although you are your own downfall, or your own undoing, is what she said. And we see that Grushenka is like like crying, or at the verge, like on the verge of crying, and Dimitri sees this, and he says himself that like uh I'm sorry. I'm sorry for my love. I'm sorry for ruining you with my love. And it seems like he wants to say more, but like he's just overcome with so much emotion that he ends up like fleeing the scene. Not really fleeing from the police, but he just flees just so that I don't want to I don't want to cry in front of you. And so he just like goes away and cries somewhere. And it's kind of like a heartbreaking scene, but at the same time, it sounds so cute. It honestly sounds so cute. And so that's why Dimitri is definitely one of my favorite characters. Like, I was kind of like, okay, he's a fun character. And then I read the chapter with the Grand Inquisitor. Like, this is where like the book that the Grand Inquisitor is in. This is where Alyosha and Ivan, and that's also one of my favorite chapters in the book, which is the brothers make friends, or the brothers make acquaintances. I'm not sure what the name is in here. Like, in the if we check the table of contents here, the brothers make friends. There we go. In book five, pro and contra, and yeah, like I was thinking, like, okay, I really like Ivan, and I really like Alyosha as well, and now I don't know, like Dimitri is by far like my favorite character. Like so like so far, he is my absolute favorite character because just of how chaotic he is and how fun he is to like he's really fun in the pages of this book. I don't think I'd like to be with him like in real life. Or maybe I would. It would be kind of fun to see like to have like daily updates of like how he fucked up his life a little bit, but like like yeah, he's just a very fun character. Next up, we have Alyosha, who I've always fan cast in my head as like okay, like he's like a monk twink or something like that, right? Like I was thinking he has the cassock on. He has like somewhat long brown hair. I'm not even sure like did we actually get any description of their hair color? I don't know. I think I missed it. Maybe somewhere. I don't know. But uh yeah, I do kind of think of him as like a twink, which is funny that like he's the first twink that comes to mind when we talk about the brothers Karamazov because technically speaking, I guess somebody is more of a twink than him, and that's Smerdyakov. Like he is, if I remember correctly, he is like explicitly described to be like a little feminine looking, which is why, like, I guess sometimes he's made fun of. Uh, but yeah, uh, Alyosha, Alyosha's the religious monk twink who loves his father Zosima, and I really like his. Well, I really liked his book. I really like this book because he was already a pretty interesting character. Because although maybe a little less interesting than the others, because he hasn't had a real crisis. We see Ivan have a crisis, which is during the Grand Inquisitor, and the other chapters in Pro and Contra, where he says that like I think I do believe in a god, like I do believe in God, but I just don't like his world and we kind of see Alyosha go through a similar. We finally see Alyosha go through some kind of conflict after Zosima dies. Now, here's a little that I thought about Zosima. I kind of liked him, but I really did not like his chapter in book six, the Russian monk. Uh, his chapters have been the longest and we had some really interesting stories. Like at first, I was kind of like, okay, he's just gonna be preaching to his fellow priests, but then we see that like, oh, we have an interesting view of his like his life. Like we see his youth, we see his transition into priesthood, which is like also like a pretty fun story where he was also like this soldier who I would say he was kind of like a Dimitri type character and like he finds out that this one girl that he's been pursuing turned out to have a fiance all along, and it's like this guy that he knows of that guy, but like that guy was so unassuming, and so he was kind of like really you chose him over me, and so he just like picks a fight with him, and eventually like has this duel arranged with him, but then I guess he gets like some spiritual enlightenment after he beats up his subordinate, and like he couldn't sleep because of it, and so he's like, okay, you know what, like I think I have to like apologize, and so he apologizes to his subordinate, and then come the time of the duel, he lets like they do their paces, and then they face each other and they shoot, but Zosima doesn't shoot. The other guy he shoots and it grazes Zosima's cheek, and now that the other guy's shot has been spent, he just goes to the guy and asks for his forgiveness. I think that was pretty interesting, and I also thought like his story with the guy who is tormented by the fact that he killed his lover, or not really his lover, but like this woman that he loved, because it turned out that she had this fiance this whole time. Uh, he's kind of like tormented by Zosima's existence because all this time, like obviously the his role in the death uh of the woman that he loved is always weighed on him. But now he sees that like there's somebody who walked in his path. There was somebody like almost almost exactly like him, right? Someone exactly like him, and yet is able to kind of just not do the same mistake that he did. Instead of like going through and killing uh, the woman he loved, or like a man that the woman he loved, you know, Zosima just asks for forgiveness, and he's able to live with a clean conscience, which is why this mysterious man, I just call him, like whenever I relay the story to somebody else, I would always just call like this one guy the mysterious man who talks to Zosima after he commits to monkhood or priesthood. Uh, he says that Zosima lives in heaven because, as we can see, he lives in hell. He has like a loving wife, he has children who love him, and he's a respected pillar in the community. And despite all that, he can't enjoy it because the only thought in his head is that what if people find out? What if people find out that I was a fraud? And that just consumes him. So that's a pretty interesting story. And then it just like goes back into the present, and we get this story about how, or not really a story. He just talks about like, like as a priest, how do you spread the word? How do you spread the word? And I don't know, like it reminded me a little bit too much of like when I went to church, and it's just kind of like, okay, I've heard this. I really like. Do I really want to read this again? Uh, and thankfully, I don't want to sound callous here, but I am callous. Thankfully, eventually we see that he gets a heart attack or something. He just feels a pain in his chest, and then he just like, while he's dying, he just like raises his hands and his arms into the sky, and just like bows down while he's just like having a heart attack, and finally dies. And this starts Alyosha's book because uh, Father Zosima is having his what do you call it? He's about to be like they're having a ceremony of his death, and something wrong happens in the ceremony, where what happens is Zosima's body stinks, and as they've said here, I'm not really sure about the science here, but really like uh, if like uh, if the science checks out in here, but they say something about how like a body usually it only stinks this bad after like 24 hours. It hasn't even been 24 hours since Zosima died. How the fuck does he stink that bad? And also, he's a priest, he's a monk. Like he's he should be fasting. There's not really much in his body but bones. Like there's not really that much for there's really not much on his body to decompose, and yet he already stinks that much. And so, like, surely, this smell is a sign that Father Zosima, like, he's done some things that God does not condone. And so, while a lot of people are very quick to call him like a saint, like a local saint, obviously this is like an omen from God that, like, nope, this guy is not a saint. And then we see uh, Father Farapont and his associates, and not really associates, more of his like his ideological followers. Like, oh, like these priests or these monks, they're too libertine or whatever, and their libertineness is kind of just like, oh, they eat sweets, they eat sweets, and like I'm thinking of Alyosha's cherry jam that uh he was eating with Ivan when they were younger, and then also during the Pro and Contra book, and it's like, oh no, but not really, because I like Alyosha's kind of just there to, I don't know, hang around uh Father Zosima. Like, as we've known, Father Zosima this entire book was already thinking that he's gonna die soon. And we already know that Alyosha's not gonna stay in the monastery for long, because Zosima said, after I die I wanted to go into the like go forth into the world. Like, to be in the monastery, to be like an actual uh effective worker in the monastery. It has to be born from love of the people. And, like, you can't really love the people if you don't know the people. And Alyosha's a really young person who doesn't really have all these experiences. And so I want you to go out into the world, have a wife, have children, or whatever. I want you to experience all of that so that you're able to, like, actually, sympathize and empathize with the people of the world. Like I want you to learn to love people, not just as an abstract, like, I love humanity. Like, I want you to actually have, like, this Christ-like love where it's like, yeah, I do get what you're experiencing, and I love you either way. Like, I love you anyways, even though you're a sinner, even though you've done this or that, right? Let me just get some water, because I've kind of just been talking for like 40 minutes, and it's like, wow, that's crazy. 40 minutes. That's crazy. I didn't think I had it in me to just talk straight 40 plus minutes and without drinking water. But now my mouth is really dry, so I don't know. Maybe I'll just cut this in the edit, or maybe not. I might just not edit this video just to see how it goes. So yeah. So in Alyosha's book, the main conflict that he has is that, like, I guess he contemplates more on Ivan's uh, statement that he loves God, but he does not accept God's world. And I guess that stems from the fact that uh, I don't think he was really hoping for, like, like this like miracle from God to, like, show that, like, see, uh, Father Zosima was he was a saint. Like, everybody should be like him. Like, he's somebody to, to, like, to aspire to be. I think he was kind of like maybe he did to some extent, but really the root of his conflict is the fact that Zosima has been like this really nice person, a really good person, a really godly person, and, like, for all this, his reward was that he would be maligned in his death, because we had lots of people thinking that, like, oh yeah, maybe Father Farapont does have a point. He was kind of spoiled, and he was kind of corrupt. He was abusing uh the confessionals or whatever. But yeah, that's the main uh conflict with Alyosha, and it's in Alyosha's book where we know more about Grushenka. That Grushenka, all this time, we've just been seeing that the love triangle is we see the love triangle between Grushenka, Fyodor and Dmitri. And it's revealed in this chapter because Alyosha is kind of just under this tree, kind of just like lying down on the ground, face first, and Mikhail Rakitin, who I feel has a really awkward name, Rakitin. Rakitin. But yeah, Rakitin finds Alyosha lying down under a tree, and uh, after he realizes that, like, oh, like Alyosha is kind of like he might be having this rebellious phase because he's never like Alyosha's always been this mild mannered uh guy this entire book, and all of a sudden now he has like I don't know, like I would say maybe he has a scowl. Like he actually looks irritated. He's not just like this mild smiling boy. Like he looks irritated at Rakitin's presence, and so I've never seen that face before. I've never seen that face on him before, and so he realizes like, oh, like he's probably sad that his father Zosima was that his body stank. That was a sign that like God does not condone his ministry, his role as a religious figure on earth. And so this is what I would call like this when Rakuten just tries to be like Satan. He tries to be a serpent of some kind, where he starts whispering temptations into Alyosha's ear. Which honestly, some of these temptations sound really gay. Which is like, I have a sausage in my pocket. Do you want to eat it, or something like that? It's like, I mean, it sounds kind of like it sounds like a proposition of some kind. But we see that like he is propositioning Alyosha, but just in a different way. Which is when he's like, oh, you want a sausage? Oh, you also want some like you want some vodka as well? Oh, you probably wouldn't like that because you're a priest. Oh, you want vodka? Okay. Oh, you know what? Instead of going to my house, we should go to Grushenka's house. And so basically, he's like, I really want to see Alyosha fall because like that's been kind of like a sentiment that's been expressed in the chapter when Zosima like his coffin is just being paraded, where it's something about how like men want to see righteous men kind of like fall. Like nothing gives him more joy than like a righteous man fall from grace, and that's the same thing with Rakuten. He wants to see Alyosha, you know, like I suppose he was planning that like I want Alyosha to fall into lust and kind of just like disavow the church and just like I don't know have nasty sex with Grushenka or whatever. I'm just I'm just putting I'm just putting things in that terms. I really just think that like falling into lust is honestly enough of a statement. Disregard the fact that I said nasty sex. That doesn't really matter. But yeah, that was his plan. And his plan doesn't really work because Grushenka's a nice person. Like this where when we see that like yeah, she was kind of annoyed by Katerina kind of just like acting really, really nice with her, thinking that like she's so easily swayed. And as soon as she finds out that Alyosha has kind of just been quiet this entire time because uh, Zosima has just died, she immediately goes like, oh shit, are you okay? Are you okay? And Rakuten keeps like he keeps goading Alyosha into like, come on, do something. Like, don't you want to fall into temptation with Grushenka? But then like Alyosha, of course, he knew of all this because he's not like he's naive, but he's not stupid, right? And so he says that like do you think I don't know what you're doing, like Rakuten? You know what I mean? Like stop trying to tempt me. Like I came here because I was seeking oblivion. I wanted to be ruined, and so I went to somebody who I thought was evil, and then and then when I met Grushenka, when she found out that Father Zosima died, she had nothing but kind of like pity for me. And so instead of oblivion, I've kind of just I have met a true sister, right? And so he tells Grushenka that like my spirit has been lifted by you, and that's where when we see that like uh, Grushenka is happy because she's given an onion, which is basically it comes from the story where there was this one woman who was so like she was just horrible her entire life, and so when she died, she was just put into hell, and her guardian angel was like, "Oh, like God, like can you please like put her in heaven? Like surely she did something nice. Like surely she doesn't deserve like to go to hell." And God had just said like, "Okay, tell me one good deed this woman did." And then her guardian angel just like scrubs through her life and like, "Oh, one time she gave this poor woman an onion." Which I don't know. Like I feel like even that is kind of like that's kind of just how horrible she she is. Where even her one good act is kind of like I'm assuming there's just this poor woman who was just like asking like do you have any food for me like they ask for food. I'm really hungry. And instead of giving her something like I don't know, like old bread, like it doesn't even have to be new bread. It just has to be old bread that isn't that's not like completely bad. Like she just gives her straight up an onion. Like yeah, go eat an onion. Like like, I don't know. Have I ever eaten an onion by itself? Like I don't know. Like it might be a it honestly might be a what do you call that? It might be a delicacy somewhere. I don't know. Maybe some places have different onions. But in my experience, just like eat the concept of just eating an entire onion. Like that sounds disgusting. Even if I was like so hungry, like if somebody gave me an onion, like oh you're so hungry, how about you have an onion? Then I think you're kind of an asshole. But if like God's like okay sure that's I guess I suppose that's a good act. So why don't you use that onion to reach out to your to the woman that you've been protecting and like lift her up out of hell using that onion? And so the guardian angel does so, and the woman is able to hold on to that onion. And while she's being lifted out, she's almost out, but a bunch of other inhabitants of hell are also clinging onto her leg. And like clearly, since they're already so high up there, you know, like that's fine. The extra weight doesn't really bother that onion that you gave the other poor woman. But she's so horrible that she's like get off me. My guardian angel came here to save me and only me, not you. So get the fuck off me. And she just like moves around so much trying to kick them off that eventually the onion crumbles or it just breaks apart, and so she falls back into hell. And we see here that the Grushenka is saying that like I've like I'm a horrible woman, which is I've already told you about that with like in regards to her relationship with Dimitri, where she thinks that I'm a horrible person, you're also a horrible person, let's be horrible together. So she says that I'm a horrible woman. I'm like the same as that woman in the story. And you know what? I've already like this is my onion. This is me giving somebody an onion. This is my one good deed. And as I was saying, this entire time we thought that there was this love triangle between Dmitri, Fyodor, and Grushenka, but it turns out that there's this one officer who Grushenka has been like Grushenka loved this officer when she was younger, like 17 or so, and then this officer left her to get married to somebody else, and she couldn't help but still cling on to that love. Or maybe she can't help but cling on to the anger of being spurned by her love. Either way, that guy was always on her head this entire time. Dmitri and Fyodor haven't really been like in the running, not really seriously, not until Dimitri's chapter, which is also kind of a nice story where Grushenka tells Dimitri that like it's so stupid how you know, I like I was thinking all this time, like, what would happen if I met this officer? Like, it's been a decade. It's been like a couple, not really a decade, maybe just like a couple of years. It's been years since I last saw him. How would I react when I see him again? Will my heart beat again, or will I have like nothing but anger? And honestly, I just felt nothing. And the only time my heart actually felt something was when you came in, and that was really nice. That was really nice, and I really cannot say enough that like Dimitri is so charming. He's just a fuck up. He's just an adorable fuck up that you can't help but love. As long as you're not the one being hit, as long as you're not getting hit in the head with a pestle by Dimitri, or you're not getting pulled by the beard by Dimitri, or anything else, he is so lovable. He is so lovable. Uh, but yeah, we so back to Alyosha's book, I guess. We see now that kind of like Grushenka just opens up to Alyosha, and Alyosha kind of goes back into his usual self, but with a little bit more resolve, because I do feel that like Alyosha always seemed to be the kind of person in the beginning who always said the right things, but it's kind of like he kind of just learned that from somebody, which is like that's not bad. That is a benefit of like humanity that we learn. Like we don't like who was it? Like was it Vygotsky? No, it's not Vygotsky. It's Bandura, if I remember correctly. Alfred Bandura, who said that like we don't have to experience everything that we know. You know what I mean? Like we don't like, for example, you don't have to touch a stove to know that a fire is hot. You kind of sometimes you just see somebody like get burnt at a stove and then realize, okay, I'm not gonna do that, right? So it's not entirely bad, but I guess for something as personal as like spirituality or something, I guess sometimes you have to go through conflict yourself. You have to go through turmoil yourself. And we see him come to kind of like a resolution here, or he's on the verge of a resolution, and this annoys Rakuten because it's kind of like oftentimes how I would narrate it to people if I whenever I relay this story to other people is that Rakuten got angry because like I sent you to Grushenka's house like I came with you to Grushenka's house hoping that you'd fall into temptation, and yet you came out of it like even more self-righteous than you already were. So you know what? Fuck off. Go to the go to the monastery by yourself. And then in here we see that uh after the after Alyosha's visit to Grushenka's place, he goes back to the monastery, and then he sees that Father Paisy is or is it Paisy, Paisi? I'm not sure. Either way, he's praying. He's reading the gospel in front of Father Zosima's corpse and or his coffin, and Alyosha is kind of just like praying along uh, with Father Paisi, and he kind of also falls asleep, which honestly kind of relatable. I like, especially when I was younger, I did fall asleep a lot during certain prayers, but Alyosha kind of receives a vision because like Father Paisi is telling a story, like he's reading the part of the Bible when Jesus arrives at a wedding of like poor people, and so because they're poor, they don't have the money to buy like good wine or anything. And so he instructs everybody to like, oh yeah, so fill these jars with water, and I'll turn them into wine. And that's where we get like the story of like Jesus turning water into wine. And then he sees a vision, I guess, of Zosima talking to him, and I think this kind of like like he starts to really understand. I guess like that vision combined with like his experience of going uh, at Grushenka's place, somebody that he's always thought was wicked, especially after Grushenka, you know, played a trick on Katerina. Uh, he's always thought of her as evil, and then after knowing her for a little bit more, he realizes like, oh, this is a friend. This is a true sister to me. And so I guess uh, with the vision of Zosima, I guess he kind of gets now why uh, Zosima wants Alyosha to be out into the world, because it's like uh, you can't truly say that you love people despite their sins if you've never really been with people who you think are like sinful or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, if you're kind of just cloistered in the monastery, in your cells, just praying and just meditating without really interacting with a lot of people, you kind of just have like an abstract and vague love for humanity, where it's like I love humanity as like a abstract concept. But if you actually got me to interact with individual people, I will hate them. Which is, by the way, we also see that theme uh, very early on in the story. If I remember correctly, it was uh, Madame Holocaust. Madame Holocaust goes to Zosima and thanks him that like, oh, it's like my daughter has been able to move around ever since our visit to you. But also I'm kind of like plagued with this dilemma where the more I love humanity as an abstract, the more that I hate people individually. And that dilemma's already been introduced really early into the book. And I think that to some extent, of course, you would hate people, individual people, more as you love humanity as an abstract more, because it's kind of like humanity as an abstract. It's kind of just like it's become an ideal. It's become an ideal, and then whenever you meet a regular person, you meet an individual person, you see that they are constantly failing that ideal, and so you can't help but feel, I don't know, some kind of like resentment towards them, like they're failing my vision of what a person is, of humanity. You're failing the project of humanity. uh and so now it ends with Alyosha's book ends with him kind of just leaving. uh like he runs out of the monastery, and he kind of just like looks into the sky and sees the moon and the stars and the Milky Way, and he starts kissing the ground, and he like learns that, like, you know what, like, I love people. I need to love to learn people individually. And so the next day he was like, okay, I'm out. I'm fulfilling Father Zosima's request. And I feel that like Father Paisi, I'm not really sure if he got uh I'm not really sure if he got the, I don't know, the whole loving people individually, not just people as an abstract thing. Especially that, like, wait, let me replenish the fluids in my mouth. It's especially that, like, if I remember correctly, in the book that contains Grand Inquisitor, one of the things that kind of made me feel that, like, oh yeah, like maybe I don't really agree. Maybe I don't want to be like Ivan all that much. Like, I feel that Ivan's really relatable. But the one thing that I didn't like from him was, like, him thinking that like maybe the church is made up of like some kind of like Illuminati. You know what I mean? Where it's like we're burdening ourselves with the burden of atheism so that the people below can continue to believe in God, because the people yearn to believe in God. If there was no God, they would create that. They would create their own God, right? And if I remember correctly, Alyosha says something along the lines of like Father Paisi tells him that, like, yeah, like that like, yeah, the uh the priests and the monks in the church are like suffering for the good of all the people, and like I mean like this is kind of like something that I always operate on, which is that I do think that all of these like powerful church people, especially if somebody like me, I'm a Filipino, and we've had a lot of history with the church, especially during the Spanish occupation. Like it's like I do agree with like Alyosha that like I don't know, it's like the domination of the church, not just like it's just a vulgar like it's kind of just all in the service of vulgar acquisition of power. Like there's no great conspiracy to it. I just want power. Like I'll just get it in any means that I would like to, like emotionally, psychologically, physically. It's just using different kinds of tools to get power. It's not really that like, oh, I'm secretly suffering so that the rest of humanity can live. And I think Father Paisi says something like that. And even though Father Paisi also wants Alyosha to go out into the world, he's like, but don't forget your like don't forget like you're here for a purpose. You're going out into the world so that you can serve God or something. Whereas Father Zosima, the one thing I do like about Father Zosima is that I think his purpose in letting Alyosha go out into the world is like, yeah, sure, it's to further serve God, but at the same time, it's also a good thing. I feel that to some extent, maybe just loving God or and serving God is not the end all be all. It's kind of just okay to learn that like it's kind of just okay to like learn to love. It's to learn to love people, you know, and like by learning to love people, like I guess you're able to kind of just show this Christ-like love because like I mean you're all already here. You're already inclined to it. I'm not gonna tell you to like I'm not gonna hammer more uh gospel and scripture into you. You already have it in you. The only thing I need you to do is to be able to effectively love people, which is to know them more. And to know them more is to engage in the bullshit that the brothers go through. Because here's another thing. I guess like to conclude this video, which I feel more and more confidently I feel like I'm going to entitle this video something along the lines of like I don't know, puppies and twinks or something like that. I don't know. But after 500 plus pages, actually I think it's a what chapter does delirium I mean what page does delirium end in? My copy of Brothers Karamazov is 897 pages. It says here that delirium finishes in 513 or 14 in page 513 or 514, and that's after almost more than half of the book. Fyodor Karamazov is finally dead. He's finally dead. Like I've been waiting for him to die, not because I hate Fyodor Karamazov. I mean, I do. He's kind of a despicable character, especially with what he did to. Uh, I forgot her name, but it's Smerdyakov's mother, right? Uh, but I've been waiting for him to die since page one because it says here on the back of the book, this extraordinary novel, Dostoevsky's last and greatest work, tells the dramatic story of four brothers: Dmitri, pleasure-seeking and impatient and unruly; Ivan, brilliant and morose; Alyosha, gentle, loving, honest, and illegitimate; Smerdyakov, sly, silent, cruel. And driven by intense passion, they become involved in the brutal murder of their own father. And that murder happens in page 514, 513. Like, we only see. I mean, technically, it kind of comes a little bit earlier because because there was a point when after Dmitri fails getting money from uh, Madame Holokov, he thinks it's like what I'm gonna go to uh I'm gonna go to the Karamazov household, and he knocks that secret knock that Smerdyakov and uh, Fyodor have agreed upon. And when you know when Fyodor like peeks his head out and he's like looking for Grushenka because he does the uh, knock, which if I remember it goes something like this, like 1, 2, 3, yeah, so something like that. That's a sign that Grushenka is here, and so he immediately goes out and sees like Grushenka, are you out here? Are you out here? And that puts Dmitri at like it puts his mind at ease. It's like okay, Grushenka's not here, but at the same time uh he looks at Fyodor and thinks that he remembers his conversation with Alyosha, saying that like I don't think I have the guts to kill our father, but sometimes he just looks so hideous. He looks so detestable. Like I see his nose, I see his eyes, I see his face, and all of a sudden sometimes I think like maybe I could do it. I could kill him if he gets any more hideous. And at the time, we do see that like Dimitri says himself that like I think I can kill him. I think I can kill him right now. He even readies his pestle, but then it just skips to Dimitri's not Dimitri's, Grigory's. It skips to Grigory's POV where he sees that uh, Fyodor's windows are open, and then he sees Dimitri run away from the scene, and I guess we kind of see that, and then uh, Grigory kind of just accuses Dimitri of parricide. So I guess that's our first indication that Fyodor is dead, but we're so like especially when you're in Dimitri's head, you don't really care about uh you don't really care about whatever Grigory is saying that like oh I killed my father. That's not true because what's in my mind is that like I just hit this old guy in the face and then now he's bleeding profusely. He's bleeding so badly that not even like this handkerchief that I have is enough to just completely staunch to not it doesn't even slow down like the flow of bleeding from his head. So I'm just gonna leave him and hope that he's alive, right? But yes, but even that is kind of like pretty much halfway into the book. So really, I'm gonna stop by saying that like after 500 pages, after 513, 514 pages, Fyodor Karamazov is finally dead. Anyways, that's it. That's all I have to say so far about the Brothers Karamazov. It's been a really good read. It's been a really, really good read. If you can, like, it might not be for everybody because like there is a lot of uh, religious debate, and I do get that like debating in general is like kind of annoying. I feel like if you get into the Grand Inquisitor or pro and contra really in general, I think that Ivan's way of debating, especially with Alyosha, is just so sincere that like I think maybe you'll be like you might just give the book a chance. That like it's not just you relitigating the I don't know like memories of you kind of like being involved, whether because you're parties who want to like you're one of the parties debating, or you were just forced to hear the debate of two or more parties, and like you're just forced to hear like somebody debating like, oh well, you fell into my logical trap, like you were just committing a Mott and Bailey, you were committing an ad hominem or whatever, right? There is none of that. There's none of that. I think the most like logic trappy uh debate that occurs is with Smerdyakov, where he debates like, you know what, it would actually be uh like this is why it would actually be moral if if a bunch of because like in the story they mentioned that like there's this one Christian missionary who goes into the Middle East and he gets captured by a bunch of Muslims, and apparently he gets tortured and is forced to disavow God, but he doesn't, and so he gets beheaded. And Smerdyakov in the story just says like, well, it would be moral for me. Like he gives this argument of why it would be moral for him to disavow God or something like that. But yeah, and it's like that's probably the closest you'll get to like all these logic trap debate bro whatevers. But honestly, it's just so funny that like okay, I'm just okay with it. I'm just okay with it. Anyways, that's it. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you end up watching, I don't know, a future video where I talk more about the brothers Karamazov, or maybe even a couple more books. Like I don't know, I have a couple books up there in my book collection that um that I think I could have like I think I could talk about them. I still do remember them. So yeah, I hope you come back for a future video. I hope you enjoyed this one. That's it. See you.